Good day, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the voice of reason. Today, we're continuing our reports and monitoring the ongoing war that is taking place between Russia and Ukraine, and we're also monitoring other events that are taking place in the region. And specifically, there appears to be two key events that are worth talking about. It looks like the Russian armed forces are starting to conduct some very large scale naval maneuvers in the Baltic Sea, with as many as 60 warships and other support vessels, to include aircraft and a large number of personnel as well. And that is taking place in the Baltic Sea. And we're also hearing reports that Belarus will be expanding its armed forces to exceed 80,000 personnel. And as we're watching the continued conflict with Russia and Ukraine, we also believe that Russia, too, while not an official announcement that Russia will be expanding its armed forces, just due to the very nature of the war that is taking place between Ukraine and Russia, it is very, very likely that we will see the expansion of the Russian armed forces. And I think it's safe to say that just like Belarus expanding its armed forces, basically doubling the size of its existing armed forces, we too can expect that the Russian Federation will also expand its armed forces. And right now, as I talked about in previous episodes, as we had conducted reviews of the Russian military apparatus prior to the ongoing campaign against Ukraine, the armed forces of Russia at the onset of hostilities, with ground forces about 280 to 300,000, naval infantry and coastal defense forces an additional 30,000, the VDV or the airborne troops an additional 45 to upwards to 60,000, various reports in terms of the actual size of the airborne forces. It has expanded in recent years to include several tank battalions and additional air mobile and airborne regiments as well. And then obviously the Russian National Guard, which exceeds 300,000 personnel. So we anticipate going forward that the ground forces component could reach within the next year to 2 years, I would estimate in the 600,000 personnel range. And again, we're kind of seeing, while not a national mobilization, but more of a covert regional mobilization that is taking place. And that is going to get the Russian ground forces to have a lot more personnel than it currently does, probably fairly quickly, and probably more quickly than the outside observers are giving the Russian Federation credit for. And I gotta say that there's quite a bit of comments in the comment section that identify the site as being a Russian supportive site. While I would say I'm not a Russian file or someone who is very sympathetic or even positive on Vladimir Putin, I do look at the global strategic situation, and would say that in terms of what would benefit the United States strategically, especially regarding the People's Republic of China and the People's Liberation Army, the People's Liberation Army Air Force, the People's Liberation Army Navy, the People's Armed Police, continue this rapid expansion in which the capabilities of the People's Republic of China in terms of its armed forces are continuing to increase at an incredibly rapid pace. And at a certain point, given the amounts of ships that are being built, and if there were to be a conflict between China and another nation state in the local area, be it India or Taiwan or what have you, Vietnam, we would start to see the Chinese develop and get better at their field craft and their ability to fight war. They will become better at the operational art, which some believe that there are some issues in the Chinese armed forces in terms of capability centered around training. And based on what I have seen, I would concur with that assessment. The Chinese look relatively good on paper. They put out a lot of fairly flashy equipment fairly quickly, but we don't know how the Chinese military would respond to adversity in the field against a near-peer adversary such as the United States, or even against India or Taiwan. We just don't know what that would look like, or even Japan or South Korea. They just haven't had a lot of experience with actual warfare since probably the 70s, when they had that failed operation against Vietnam. That did not go very well for the People's Republic of China. But China is going to continue to grow both in economic capacity and in military capacity as well. And I would have to say that just the strategic outlook, it would be better for the United States, for the West, to have Russia gravitating towards the West, gravitating towards not having a hostile relationship with the United States, as opposed to its current stance in which it is gravitating towards the People's Republic of China. I think China in and of itself is a state that could be contained. I do not believe, and I think it's going to be much more difficult, that if China has Russia in its corner, and again, going kind of back to the heartland theory, has access to Russian bases and form some sort of geopolitical strategic alliance with Russia, that is not going to be good for the United States and its East Asian partners as well. Having a Russian Federation that is not actively supporting in an alliance with Russia would be much more helpful to the United States in its strategic outlook than having Russia in the Chinese corner. And I hope viewers can understand that. It is just a strategic analysis that is based on reason and common sense. And again, having those two very, very large nation states allied together with a common purpose against the United States does not bode well for the United States and many of its allies. And just wanted to clarify that point, and again, thinking long term, and ultimately, can the United States be successful in its current placement in the world setting? And as we continue to progress down this route of open hostilities with Russia, and that gravitational pull that is creating this Chinese-Russian alliance, this is not going to bode well for Western alliances, the United States, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, the Quad, and East Asia. It simply just is not at this point. And that's why I kind of take the stance that I take in regards to maybe the messaging of some of the content that I put out. And I hope it gives clarification as to the why I have certain stances on some of these issues, especially this incessant thought process that we have to have active hostilities with the Russian Federation. That seems that a lot of political pundits in the United States seem to be pushing the United States towards. It is not a good situation for us to be in as a nation. Anyway, I hope that clarifies things a little bit. and more content to come very, very soon. Have a good day.